The Means to an End by its_Kingston on AO3. Episode 11, Chapter 6. Why did you tell me this? Toga asked her again. Her voice was louder now, no longer a whisper, lost among the ashes that went with the wind. Because I thought it was imperative you knew, Uraraka answered. She gathered her courage and turned her head, meeting Toga's gaze. Tear-filled eyes looked back at her. Sapping the courage she unearthed, the half-smile on Toga's face dealt the final blow of insecurity. Though if you choose, we can ignore such a comment. Uraraka amended. Her mind spun anew, terrible outcomes cropping up faster than she could seem to dispel them, warning of various degrees, all telling her to go back, that no good would come from letting Toga speak here. She needed to apologize, needed to push them back to the group, needed to relax. Toga murmured. What is it you meant to say? How is it meant to be taken? Uraraka felt Toga's hands close around her. A gentle gesture that had been used so often. Yet it was new now. It was terrifying now. It was unknown now. The tears in Toga's eyes hadn't fallen, hadn't flown out amongst a wave of scornful words that burned Uraraka in a horrible way, not the way her cheeks burned when Toga smiled at her. Perhaps not all the unknown was to be afraid of. Adventuring with Toga had not harmed her yet, had not set her back to anything worse than when she was in her tower. Toga had come back after Uraraka heard her. Surely Uraraka would choose only the few people she had over this matter. Perhaps risks were to be taken, as long as one had someone to catch them. And she had someone. Toga had climbed down the vines alongside her, and whether she quipped about it or not, Uraraka was positive Toga would have made an attempt to assist her had she fallen. To be vigilant is to be prepared, yet to be paranoid is to miss out on the world. Uraraka had trusted her when she let Toga back into her tower, had trusted her when she offered Uraraka a way down, had trusted her to guide her through the orchid, to keep them safe, had even trusted Toga's judgment about the Legion, and Uraraka hadn't been hurt by her yet. Uraraka would trust her again and again and again, so long as she was given reason. And now, as she looked towards Toga, who stared at Uraraka as if she knew the world, as if the majestic forest they sat in or the fields they passed through hadn't meant a single thing, as she held Uraraka's hand so tenderly, so lovingly, there weren't a single reason for Uraraka not to trust her. I meant it in the sense of, I wish to spend my days with you, Hime, as many as I can. It's been a single day, Toga said back. Far too little to decide such a thing. She looked anticipated despite her opinion, as if she were daring Uraraka to find fault in her argument, hoping Uraraka would challenge it. Yet you attest to it. Uraraka's voice caught in her throat. It were as if the words themselves had become jarred in her mouth, not wanting to spill out. The deep breath she took must have been enough to shake them free, for the words tumbling out. You attest to loving me in the romantic set from the third meeting. It has not been long since that occurred, so why do you question it now? Toga spoke quickly, learning into Uraraka's space as the body shifted to better face the princess. Love. In reference of me to you, of course. But you to me? Why not? Uraraka asked boldly. Toga's hands still rested comfortably around Uraraka's. The latter brought her hand up, placing it atop Toga's hand. You helped me more than I could ever repay you for, shown me more than I could ever see from my tower. Your company has done more good for my heart than any conversation I've had with my brother. No matter how dearly I hold him, and I cannot imagine having to have gone without a prince. I care not that you're with the Legion, for your... Toga, not keen on letting her finish, cut Uraraka off when she just all but jumped on her. Uraraka sputtered, line of thought lost when Toga hit against her shoulder, and the pair tumbled backwards. Uraraka had landed on her back. She looked up at the ink-black pool above them, taking a moment to regain her bearings before attempting to recompose herself. She was met with Toga laying on her, arms crossed behind Uraraka's back. She wasn't keen on moving, not when they were so close now, tucked tightly between in a way that Uraraka's face ached from the smile she wore. They stayed like that for a long moment. Uraraka adjusted, getting comfortable beneath Toga. She was settling in for the long haul now. The fire distantly setting off glows, and the laughter bounced between trees, echoing quietly through the forest. Uraraka could feel Toga's breath against her neck, as it came in steady, deep waves. She shut her eyes, matching her breath in the woman above her. "Thank you," was murmured in a hushed voice. Uraraka wasn't sure which one of them said it. "Ah, you're finally back," Jin said. He sat up, stretching his arms above his head. Uraraka and Toga sat side by side at the fire, hands connected. Dabi looked over to the other man, eyebrows raised. "They've been back for some time. You just heavily sleeped enough to press for dead." "Hey," Uraraka said hesitantly. "I apologize about my earlier actions. I'm Uraraka. It is a pleasure to meet you both." "Hardly an issue," Jin declared. "We're waiting for the others, and whether be with you to have stayed near or not." "I am waiting for the others," Dabi corrected. He pointed a glove at the other man. "He cannot keep his eyes open if his life depended on such. Even when you are not drunk, you still find ways to inconvenience us. Truly a talent." He pushed a branch through the fire, turning the ash and causing a red glow to spring up. A few twigs were thrown into the fire pit, keeping the beast alive. "Enough complaining," Toga said. "They've got Kyego with them, no? If they planned on being delayed, they could at least send us a message." "Who's Kyego?" Uraraka asked. Toga looked over at her, a smile on her face. She opened her mouth to reply, but was cut off by a sharp motion Dabi made. Jin jolted up as well, his eyes darting to the forest. Distantly, Uraraka could hear footsteps echoing through the woods, reverberating off the rings of the trees that chose to wade in. She wondered if such a thing was done with purpose. Toga held up a finger, requesting silence as Dabi slid the large sheet of carbon leather that kept beside him over the fire pit. In an instant, the forest was darker than black. Uraraka held her breath, listening for footsteps as they drew closer. After a few more steps, they stopped. There was a tune let out, a whistle different from the one Toga had used, but seemed to be the right one as Dabi withdrew the leather and threw in more fuel. Uraraka's eyes adjusted to the light again, and she was met with the ruffling bushes. The fire grew brighter as it fed, regaining its glow and spreading its light out around the clearing. Two men pushed through the rambled, coming to stand near the fire. "These nights grow colder, far colder than any one person should have to walk in," the first man hissed. He crouched beside the fire, dropping a sword nearby. A cloud of dust bounced up in its place. Uraraka eyed it, watching the fire reflect off the sheaths beneath. It was a broadsword, gray, if the firelight was to be trusted. "What are you on about? It's a perfectly warm night. If anything, the fire's too hot," Dabi replied. Despite his sentiment, he jabbed at the fire with his branch, causing it to relieve a wave of hot air. The other man hummed in appreciation as he yanked his hands free from his glove and held them closer to the fire. "You." The standing man stepped forward. His face was scarred and crated, eyes focused. His arms held out to the side, and on its rest a small bird. It turned its head curiously, but soon disregarded Uraraka as it spotted Dabi. The man tending to the fire stuck his arm out, a thick leather glove fastened to it. The little bird jumped from the standing man's arm and flew to Dabi, landing securely on the glove. "Me?" Uraraka asked quietly. She could feel her stomach churning, and her mind began racing with all the things this threatening man was going to say. "You're the one spoken of in Himiko's letters, yes? I suppose it's good to meet you," he said. "I am Shigaraki, current acting leader of the Legion of Victors." "Uraraka," she replied. "It's a pleasure." Shigaraki grunted, then stepped forward towards the fire, his attention shifting to Dabi. "Why does he favor you?" Shigaraki asked, voice low. "I raised him from a fledgling, and I kept him fed. I can't fathom a reason he wouldn't prefer me to everyone, or at least prefer me to you," Dabi said back. The man warmed his hands by the fire, laughed. "He wanted to perch on me, but birds, no matter the size, are off-putting. Something about them makes me anxious. Glad we're all here, Toga said. She gestured around the circle their group had formed. This is our party. Spinner, Jin, Shigaraki, Dabi, myself, and you, Ojago. We'll be leaving morning. The others reside in the place we're traveling to. You're the last person I'd assign as our leader, Dabi said. His free hand was raised, 2 fingers rubbing the top of the falcon's head. Jin, pass me the satchel with the food in it. Sure, Jin replied lazily. He reached behind him, fumbling for the straps of the satchel. When he caught it, he launched it over his head, where it had landed soundly beside Dabi. The falcon flinched noticeably, claws digging into the leather glove Dabi wore. You scared Kyego, Dabi hissed. He stopped running his fingers through the feather atop the bird's head and shifted to undo the satchel's buckle. My mistake, Jin laughed. I didn't intend to scare the little one. Night came shortly after instructions. The fire was killed out, hardly an ember left in the pit. The shadows returned, climbing their way through the campsite like wild beasts. The group has wordily decided to sleep in shifts, likely a product of having to sleep in such unprotected locations for so long. Shigaraki had agreed to stay up first, as he firmly pulled his coat around him. A majority of the wind was cut by the trees that encircled them, but the remaining that swept through still bit with a chill that Uraraka could feel in her bones. First night sleeping outside? Toga had asked, as she filled through a satchel Jin had been sitting near. Yes, Uraraka admitted. Her arms were crossed tightly together in an attempt to convey heat, though if you asked her, it was not helping. With her back to one of the grand pines, Uraraka watched Toga crouch down and begin settling down a blanket. Toga cleared her throat. Am I settling this for two? Uraraka hopefully supplied. Yes, that sounds nice. Toga laughed lightly at that, as she pulled over 2 of the Legion's penful statues to use as pillows. We sound like children attempting courtship, she said. Uraraka hummed. Neither of us had much of a childhood, it seems, so perhaps that is to be expected. I feel comfortable around you, Himi. I find myself unnaturally relaxed around you as well, Toga said after a moment, and I am grateful for such now. She stood, gesturing to the makeshift bed. Shall we? You and I have to pull our weights now that we're here. That includes guarding the others, so I suggest we sleep soon. Understood, Uraraka said. She stepped away from the tree, kneeling down beside the blanket on the ground. Toga grabbed another, so they had one wrapped over themselves. Do you have a preference? You sleep towards the inside of the circle, Toga said, pointing towards a spot closer to the dying fire. If that's what you wish, Uraraka replied. She moved into her position, trying to settle comfortably by the blankets. Quite different than the mattress I slept upon only last night, though not impossible to rest on. I suppose it is, Toga laughed. Most nights we do not spread blankets across the ground to lay on, but with how cold the earth grows this time of year, it's necessary. Comfortable? Not quite, Uraraka said. A smile grew on her face as she looked up at Toga. Once you stop bidding your time and come lay beside me, I think I'll find myself much more at home. Need we listen to this? Dabi asked. I lay here hoping sleep or death take me before I have to hear another word from you two. They're in the process of courtship, Dabi. Quiet now, Jin hissed. It's like when Shigaraki... You say a single word, Jin, so help me, Shigaraki said, cutting him off. Spinner chuckled from his position, his head resting on the other man's lap. You are not immune to my wrath, even if you like to pretend so, he mumbled down to the man. That seemed to make Spinner laugh harder. You foolish bunch, leave us alone, Toga groaned. She fell to one knee beside the blanket and moved into position, laying side by side with Uraraka before she tossed the blanket over them. Now, she asked quietly. Very comfortable, Uraraka murmured in reply. Feeling bold, she rolled onto her side and pulled an arm over Toga. The rogue tensed quickly, muscles jolting beneath her clothes, but relaxed even faster. Toga made a contact sound and turned to face Uraraka, pressing her face to the side of the other woman's neck. Uraraka could feel the pebbles and unleveled pines of dirt beneath her, but found herself not caring. All she wanted was to be closer now, to be as close to Toga as she could, to know all about Toga. She was allowed to. Deep down, or maybe not deep at all, Uraraka needed Toga, needed the woman to keep her calm, and to show her the world, to give her courage, and keep her company, and be there. And perhaps it was wishful thinking of Uraraka's part, but Toga needed her too. Needed Uraraka to hold her hand and tell her nice things, to supply information about plants that Toga couldn't identify, and remind her that she was wanted. As Uraraka cuddled in closer, close enough to feel the rise and fall of Toga's chest against her own, she was left wondering whose heartbeat it was she felt hammering. Quiet words were whispered against Uraraka's skin, ones that sounded slurred with sleep, but left goosebumps in the wake. Between me and the world, I'll never make you choose. That was really fucking cute. Like, absolutely fucking adorable. Oh my god, I loved every second of that. Ugh, that was so adorable. I loved it. I love it. Mwah. Chef's kiss. Absolutely adorable. Are we gonna see Inks? Because now that I'm thinking about it, Toga does have to... Not Toga. Uraraka has to go back to... Oh, my eye is twitching. Uraraka has to go back to her kingdom. And will Toga be allowed? What's gonna happen there? How is that gonna work? Hold up, I'm trying to see my eye twitching. It is quite interesting to see your eye move, knowing that you are not the one moving it. Okay, it's one of the silent twitches. I call them silent twitches because it's like, it's twitching and I could feel it twitch, but it's not twitching so much that you could see it in my reflection or in my image. So, sorry. This fic makes me speak in such a way, okay? Okay? See, even the way I explain it is explained in such a manner that is fitting to this era. Yeah. Okay, so this was really cute. I really enjoyed it. The next chapter is quite a long one. It's the longest one yet. It's roughly about to be like 50 minutes. Roughly about 50 minutes. So I'm probably going to split it up into 20-20-15, right? Or I could do... No, it has to be 20-20-15. Yeah, 20-20-15, right? So around there, right? So I think, yeah, 20-20-15. So I really enjoyed every second of this. This was really nice to do. I had fun. I really truly did have fun, I promise. And thank you so much for watching my video. So as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.